Hey guys, welcome to RT Infrastructure Micro Lessons, where we cover short lessons about network automation, and AWS. Today's micro lesson is going to be about lines. And what am I talking about lines? So we have two type of lines in a switch, the VTY lines and the con line or the console lines. And these are just certain ways we can pretty much manage connection to the switch, whether it be through a console cable or through SSH or Telnet. And we can kind of specify settings and different things we want when someone connects to the Cisco device or any device in that matter. So let's talk a little bit about VTOI line. So VTY stands for virtual teletype, and these are virtual lines that are used when somebody remotely connects to a Cisco device through either SSH or Telnet. Now, typically it depends on the device, but you can have multiple lines. So, for instance, you can have like 31 lines or something like that, which means you'll essentially have 32 virtual lines, which means there's 32 people can connect to that device at a time. And essentially, you kind of want to limit how many people connects to it, but you can have multiple connections if you need it. We also have line console or line con, which is also a type of management, but it's physically management. It's not like a virtual, like trying to SSH into it or, trying to, telnet into it. You're actually plugging a console cable into the switch and then you're managing it like that. Typically, you'll probably only have, one way of doing it. I know on nowadays on these Cisco Catalyst switches, you have actually two ways. There's a port in the back, and then there's actually a USB port in the front, and you can actually use both ways. All right, so let's kind of get into kind of configuring these lines. So we're gonna go ahead and we're going to go into our config terminal, and then we're gonna type in line con 0. So there's multiple different things that you can do. We won't go through all of this, but we'll set up a few that I personally use a lot. One of them is going to be, at least for the line console, is logging synchronous, and this is very useful just because if you ever notice when you're on these switches and you're trying to type out a command and then a notification pops up on the switch about you disconnecting a port or something, and it interrupts your command flow. You're like, oh man, what happened? Now I got to press tab to see where I stopped at. Sometimes that can get annoying, especially when you're having multiple things interrupt your when you're typing in. So logging synchronous kind of helps with that because instead of interrupting your 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 command when you're typing it in, it'll just make a new line and not interrupt that. So that's a really good one. We do have certain commands like exec timeout. So you got exec timeout 50, and essentially you pretty much are setting a timer when you are in exec mode and you're idle for a while. You're setting a timer there and saying, hey, after 5 minutes, you know, time me out, log me out of the exec mode, and then you'll have to get back into it. So that's going to be a very good one, especially if you walk away from the computer. You could it times you out. No one's able to sit down and start typing away on your switch. So those are a few ones on the line con, and then we have the line VTY, and then like I mentioned, it depends on the switch, but you may have a certain amount of VTI lines. Like for instance, you may only have 31 VTY lines. You can only have 31 people connect to it. So you only have 0 to 31, which is technically 32. So you have 32 devices that can get. You got to remember it starts at 0 and then counts the last number. So this will be 32 instead of just 31. So maybe you only have 32 devices, or maybe you only have four. It all depends on the switch that you're on. But for this switch, I have 32, so we're gonna go ahead and just configure all of those at the same time. And this one's pretty cool as well because you have different ways that you could secure this line because you're remotely doing it. So one way to actually do that is you can do access class 10 in, which is just an access list if you created one. You can allow certain things to actually connect to it, or certain networks, certain subnets to connect to this switch. So if I only wanted the 192.168.1.0 network to access this switch, I can. Or if I just only want like one PC to connect to it, I can make an access rule and then tie it to the VTY line. So same thing with the line con. We can also do an exec timeout as well. So if we ever want to do that, we could, and we'll make it a little bit longer here. So we'll do 60. And then we can also do history size. So this one's actually pretty cool because basically what it allows is it allows you to say the console will only remember the first like X amount. So for this, for example, we'll just do 96 just for an example. So the console will only remember 96 commands that you enter in. So you notice how, whenever you want to go back to command, you can use the up arrow and go back and see your previous commands, right? Well, this command here, the history size, when you SSH, you can only see the first 96 and that's it. It won't remember anything else. You can't up arrow to 97 or anything like that. It will just only remember that those 96. So that's the history size command that you can use for that. Very useful, especially if you have a lot of connections. Like you have 32 connections, and we all have history going up into the hundreds. You don't want to bog down your device with that. So maybe you want to make it all right. Only remember the first 10. So that was a pretty cool one. And then you can also, as I mentioned, the VTY lines are virtual lines that allow either SSH or Telnet. Now we can actually specify which one we want to allow because as you know, SSH is going to be more secure than Telnet. So maybe you don't want to allow Telnet. So we can do transport input SSH, and we'll click on that, and that will only allow that specific connection type into the remote into that switch. So there's a plenty of different wide range of commands that you can put on these lines to kind of specify what you want to happen when people SSH or console in, and definitely utilize them because they will be very useful. Just because you want to secure these lines as well as making sure that certain things are allowed through and other things aren't. So very cool. Highly recommend you go through the list and see what you can utilize off of that. And that'll be it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one.